Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Kevin Moore Show. Now, if you want to stay up to date with all my latest videos, just click that subscribe button below, as it really helps to support the show. Now, if you're new to the show, I interview guests from a spiritual perspective, covering mainstream and alternative subjects and much more. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Debbie Mirza. Now, Debbie is a coach and the author of the book, The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist. And she joins me today to discuss the traits of covert narcissists, how they differ from overt narcissists, and so much more. Debbie Mirza, welcome to the show.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me and asking me.
Oh, I would have waited and waited to do this interview. Do you know that? So I appreciate that we can do it now. So obviously you've been on a very interesting journey yourself, and we're going to talk about all things narcissism and covert narcissism. Your latest book, and just correct me if I'm wrong, your latest book is The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And before that book, there was a previous one, The Safest Place Possible.
Mm-hmm.
So what initially led you to write this latest book?
What led me initially was I was in a very long relationship with someone that I knew nothing about narcissism and it was not on my radar at all until my divorce attorney said, when I was interviewing divorce attorneys, this one, asked me my story, and I told her, and she said, it sounds like you've been dealing with a narcissist, or you're dealing with a narcissist. And I was like, what? That's the last word I would use to describe this person. And I said, can you tell me, why are you saying that? Why do you say that word? And she said, I'm just hearing a lot of classic traits. And she could tell that I was a deer caught in headlights. So she looked at me with these beady eyes and she said, I suggest when you get home, you get a hold of as much information as you possibly can, because you need to know what you're dealing with. And she was kind of like a frightening, intimidating figure of a person. So on my way home, I stopped at a bookstore. Because it had been a very, very confusing couple of years. It had been a very confusing marriage, but with covert narcissists, you don't recognize that you're experiencing psychological and emotional abuse because it's so subtle. So to get to the book, that started me on a journey of studying narcissism, but a lot of what was out there at the time was just about overt narcissism, the very obvious self-absorbed, over-the-top kind of person. And that didn't fit, who I had been with. And so I kept digging because there was enough traits where I thought, okay, this does feel like the right path, but not completely. So I'm not sure, so I'll keep going. And then I had been trained as a life coach years ago. And so I was in this kind of family of coaches. So I put it out there, does anyone know about this? And I ended up having a couple sessions with people. And one woman said the words I needed to hear. She said, it sounds like you've been dealing with a covert passive-aggressive narcissist, and they're the most difficult to recognize and diagnose. And when she said those words, it was like full body chills, of truth. And it was the words, the pieces to the puzzle that I needed. So then I had those words to research. So then it was just years of trying to figure out what had just happened to me, what had happened to me over decades, in this relationship. And it brought me to a place with covert narcissists. There's different phases you go through, and the final one is the discard. And that's a really brutal phase where they become more overt, where they've been covert for a long time. They become more openly cruel. And unlike other divorces, they're not done with you once it's over. And so So the covert manipulation, the devaluing, the demeaning, continues. And I reached a point, it was a few years after the divorce. I really had no intention on writing a book on narcissism. This was not what I foresaw in my path. But I received a really abusive email, and from this person, and it was so cruel, and my body had been through so much trauma that it just hit a wall. There was something that just kind of snapped after I read that. And I kind of became, well, I should say I got an abusive email for the first time because I was getting stronger. I wrote back and I said, if you continue to send me these abusive emails, I'm going to have to block you. That was followed by a 3-page just fire hose of horrific, abusive things, hurtful, incredibly, deeply hurtful, from someone who you deeply loved, who I deeply loved for a long time, truly. And it just kind of, I think my body just reached a point where it couldn't take anymore. And for 3 days, I almost became kind of catatonic in a way, not fully, but I didn't speak. I just stared out the window. I just felt numb. Except every morning I'd wake up crying. And on the third morning, I woke up crying, literally wake up, roll over, sob, and then when my eyes were closed, I started to feel this fierceness rising within me, because by this point, I was aware there were a lot of other people like me going through this that didn't have a book that really described this type. And when I was laying there, it was like a vision. I remember hearing Elizabeth Gilbert say sometimes books will come to authors almost like an invitation, will you do this? So when I was laying there, I actually saw the cover of a book that had big, bold capital letters, The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist. And I could tell it was like life was asking me, would you, And I felt this strength in me get really strong and fierce. And I thought of all the other people going through this. And even within myself, it's like, this is enough. And even on a spiritual level, like with humanity, this is enough. This is time to end this now, and help wake people up. And so I said yes. And I literally, because I know myself and I put my all into something I'm passionate about. And for the next year, I cleared my schedule, and this is all I did. And I interviewed over 100 people. I made sure I wanted it to be really accurate and helpful, not just me telling my story, but I basically wanted to write the book that I needed, years prior. And so that's how the book came about.
You were so lucky that your attorney was able to see those signs. That's not the norm.
Very lucky. Not the norm. And I think, like everything, there's a reason. I think this was the path I was supposed to go down, and I had my best friend, Liz, she said, I just hate that you went through that. I said, thank you. I do too. And she said, I told her, I said, I just feel like I had to for some reason, like something I signed up for. And she said, I just wish it hadn't been so long. And I said, yeah, but I just know that it needed to be that long, because I think I couldn't help a lot of people had it just for me been maybe like a few months or a year or two. I think I needed on a soul level to experience a really long time so that, because there's so many people like me that were in relationships for 20, 30, 40 plus years and didn't see this. And so I kind of feel like I needed to experience that so that, I don't know, I'd have like credence or something to really speak to so many aspects of this.
Absolutely. And that was your first book then, am I right? The first book was as part of your leading up process to the latest book, The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, the safest place possible. Why did you write that book for then?
So that book was like life unfolding as well. I think neither one of these were like, okay, now I'm going to do this on my list. I went through a time. So after the divorce, I moved my kids and I to a different city and was starting over by myself. I had just went through a tremendous amount of trauma, and I withdrew into myself, which happens a lot to people that go through this. And it was like this cocooning period for me. When you experience so much pain, life becomes more frightening. The life in you drains, and any dreams or even desires to be here really dwindle, and I definitely went through times, to be honest, where I didn't want to be here anymore. I knew I wouldn't ever end my life because I had my kids and I felt a strong commitment to them. But I definitely had that thinking of like, just nothing for me anymore,
Almost like
no,
almost like no light at the end of the tunnel, in a sense.
Yeah, it's kind of all life is drained from you, and life just feels hard. And also there's the aspect which so many people go through is I had been a person in our marriage, we moved a lot for his job. And I was like really committed to my kids to have a strong foundation. So I didn't develop a career with all the constant change. So that when this ended, I was in my later 40s when this ended. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trained to do minimum wage work. And it's a battle, the whole divorce thing with them, because they use different things to control you. And oftentimes it's money and it's your kids. So I had a lot of fear too of being able to support myself and support my kids. And it just all got too much, You reach places where life feels like too much and you feel like you're done. And it'd be fine if you were here. Thank goodness. All to say, that was where I was. And I had this epiphany. Well, from my coach training, I knew to ask myself, what do you need right now? What do you long for? What would feel good to you right now? And the only thing that felt good to me was to run away. I thought I just run far away.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought I want to go somewhere where no one knows me and the culture is totally different. And I had thought of Bali before. I had a couple of friends who had been there, and Eat, Pray, Love and all that. So my dad beautifully stepped in and said, I'll watch the kids. He actually had friends that owns a villa in Bali, and they said I could stay there for free. It just all lined up so incredible. I found this flight that was like bizarrely inexpensive. And, so when I was there, I went to go see Ketut Lear, the medicine man the Balinese medicine man that Elizabeth Gilbert went to see. I thought, if I'm going to fly all this way, I want to have a session. I want to meet this man. And he was beautiful. And it's so wild because you just walk into this like compound of these homes and people are out there weaving baskets. And he was too old to do this reading. So this other guy did it. And he said, in his broken English, he held my hand, he looked at my palms, he knew nothing about me. And he said, in this life, you'll have 2 marriages. And he said, and his face crinkled up, he's like, first one, very hard, very confusing. I was like, yes, just like sobbing. And he kept saying to me, you must take care of your heart. When your heart happy, more happy come to you. You must take care of your heart. And that night I fell apart. I went back to my room. I started crying. I ended up on the corner of the floor, in fetal position, just sobbing. And I knew those kind of tears went past the divorce, and it went to a whole life of not trusting myself and not listening to my heart and not standing up for myself and giving my power away time and time and time again. And when my body would feel something, I would deny it, or I would, talk my way through. Well, no, that's not right. It's because of this. I'd go to my head. So I had this conversation with my heart, my younger self, and I said to her, I just pictured this young girl in me and through my tears. And I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so, so very sorry. Because there were so many signs along the way that I didn't listen to, and I didn't value myself enough to listen to and trust myself. And I said, from now on, it's going to be different. And I'm going to earn your trust back, And my number one priority right now is to listen to you and to be with you and to take care of you. And I will never again toss you aside, So I went home and I started living very differently. I started really listening to or noticing the speech, the way I would talk to myself, the way I would treat myself. And it was just like, I'm done. I'm done being unkind. I'm done being hard on myself, judgmental, anything. And so it was a year of being led to different exercises. And I'd explained it to my friend at the time, and she said, you're very different the way you live your life. I think, what if you wrote all this down? It would really help people to know what you did with your anger today, what you did with your sadness and your depression. And I was like, oh, I love that idea. I love that I could actually use this, to help other people. So I started writing down all these exercises. Like, for instance, one was called photo albums. It's one of the chapters. And I was laying on the floor, on my living room floor. Whenever I didn't know what to do during the day, I'd just lay on my living room floor until I knew what to do. And I had this idea come to me where to take out all my photo albums from the time I was born till now and look into my eyes in every picture of every stage of my life and talk to myself and tell myself, you're so beautiful. You're such a good person. And then I'd see myself at certain ages and I'd go, oh, Debbie, I could see your eyes are kind of dimming right now. And I know you're feeling confused and I know you're feeling this and I'm sorry and everything's going to be okay. And I love you, and there was something so healing to approach every age of me. It was almost like I was going back and rewriting so much for myself. So as all those things ended up, that whole year became such a special and transformative time. And I noticed at the end of that year, I literally, and have not since, spoken a mean word to myself. It just doesn't happen anymore. It's just not allowed, So that's how. And as I was writing it, I thought, I'm not even sure what this book is about. And then I kept hearing, you'll know by the end. And by the end, I printed out all the chapters I looked at. I was like, oh, I'm becoming the safest place possible for me to live in, And so it's very transformative. So it's a very kind and nurturing book where you feel held. But yeah, that's how that one came about.
Do you think, though, that some of your healing, because you do talk about this in the first book, was, healing that inner child? And I hear that a lot in this field, but do you think that that was important for you? Because, as you've said, you didn't listen to your intuition. You didn't love yourself enough to trust yourself. And do you think that where, that part of you came from the inner child?
I think it comes from so much. I mean, I do think that we get really formative beliefs as we're growing up without realizing it, just by watching and observing, how is this world trustworthy? Oh, watching your parents. Oh, so this treatment is okay. Oh, so I shouldn't value my own heart. Oh, so, so all those are formed, and that definitely sets you up because very few of us have stellar childhoods. And it sets us up for relationships that then mimic, what we've been raised with or what we've learned to be okay with. And also, if you're taught, like most of us aren't taught to listen to your heart, to trust yourself, and so for me, I got into relationships that were very comfortable because I already knew that dance. I knew the dance of someone else having more power than me, because I had learned that's okay when it's not. I had learned the dance of someone else projecting their own issues that they're not dealing with onto me. And I had learned that it was my job to take on those issues and think that they're mine.
Where had you learned all that stuff, do you think? Just so that we're on the same track. Where had all that learned behavior?
In my childhood, for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
different relationships. Yeah. And I had also been taught and experienced a whole lot of love, so I had a mixture of dysfunction, emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive things, and love. So I think that set me up in a really interesting way I think the foundation of love that I had gave me the ability to be able to write a book like I did.
But obviously, absolutely, and obviously your foundation of childhood, if we just turn this over to the covert narcissist or just narcissists in general, would you expect their childhood to be extremely different to that, do you think?
I think everyone's different. I think with narcissists, there's sometimes abuse, there's sometimes over coddling, and lifting them up like they're the greatest person in the world, as everyone is inferior to them. But I haven't seen a black and white, every narcissist has a childhood like this.
Yeah, okay. In the research that you did to build the book, because you did a lot. And that's great. Do you know what I mean? And even doing that research, it must have been difficult because it would have brought up a lot of what you went through.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it wiped me out. I actually had a lot of health issues after it that I'm still taking care of. But yeah, because part of the research was also myself. I thought, I journal avidly, and I have since I was in high school, which in America, so around, teenage years. And so I pulled out I need to take a picture of all of them. I still have boxes and boxes of journals. And so I pulled out every journal I had since the time the relationship had began until I was writing that book. And that, talk about taking a lot out of you and digging up all the trauma again. But I knew I needed to, because it was really eye-opening. Because when you're in relationships like this, you don't see it, the abuse. You get used to certain behaviors as being okay and normal, how we rationalize in our mind. But now, like, having the knowledge I had and being a stronger person and a more loving person, I read through my journals and my eyes were open, because even myself, I was like, I don't know, am I over dramatizing this? Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm making a bigger deal of this than I should. But then when I look back, it was so validating, because I saw evidence after evidence. I mean, so much of devaluing, demeaning behavior against myself.
Absolutely. And then in the future, when other people have shared their stories with you, because of the help that you've given them as well, I can only imagine that's just so validating as well. Do you know what I mean?
The reaction to the book has been talk about validation. It's incredible. I mean, I get almost daily messages of this book saved my life. Thank you so much. It's like you were, I can't tell you how many times I've heard it was like you were a fly on the wall of my marriage or my childhood or my, work experience or whatever it is. So it's, life is interesting because you just can't imagine where it's going to take you. And then I could have never imagined I would now be a part of this kind of tribe of beautiful people that tend to be really wonderful, sensitive, healing type people.
Was there ever any response from your ex when the book came out, the latest book?
There was. I always hesitate like how much to say publicly. I guess I would say definitely yes, but once again, in like backdoor ways, in ways that were brutal. But yeah, no, definitely. There was a lot of like punishment. They tend to punish you in different ways.
Yeah. And just because your experience was, that you were getting, abusive emails, even at the very latter stage of the divorce going through, other people can have different experiences to that. And for me as well, it was any contact that I recently had, it just sends me to be abusive. Completely the opposite way around.
Yeah.
It just triggers me completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gets confusing in that state because you think, because we all play a part, don't we? Do you think that in when you look back at your experience with your partner, do you think that that you played a part in it as well? That what percentage of responsibility was yours, do you think?
Yeah, I would say on one level, there was nothing I did or said that merited abuse. So I don't take any responsibility for someone else abusing me. I'll say that. And I feel like being very strong about that. The responsibility, the part on me was the learning part, was learning that I needed to have boundaries, learning that people like this exist, that this darkness exists, learning all the times I didn't trust myself. I mean, it's been a huge learning experience. I think, yeah, I mean, my part was, and I feel like it's a very innocent part. I don't really have any blame for myself. I just have compassion, that I'm a very trusting person. I don't expect people to lie or manipulate or control. I see the best in people, and even when they're not being their best, I feel, like every client I have, as soon as their face pops up on my screen, I'm on their side. I'm their fan already, And so that's how I approach people and I approach life. And I feel like my soul knows how life is supposed to be, and what love looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been in any relationships really, except for the one that I was in where, it wasn't mainly peaceful. I'm not saying all relationships were devoid of some arguments, right? But there was that underlying love there. There was that underlying peace there. Do you know what I mean? But when you're in something different because it's just so different. Yet you can't explain it to anybody because it just makes you look complete crazy. And it's very difficult to put it into words what's really going on.
It's very difficult. Yeah. And the way you experience, I mean, it's like you have it from two ends. You have it from you're not being yelled at or hit or obviously abused. And then the treatment from them is telling you in covert ways that everything is your fault anyway. So it's like so much cognitive dissonance
But it
happening.
could be a mixture of covert and overt. So very quickly then,
Yeah.
what is covert? What is overt narcissism?
Okay. So both covert and overt have the same traits. And if you go to the DSM, it has the traits that you have to have at least 5 of those to have narcissistic personality disorder. So the traits are the same, but they manifest differently. They are shown, they play out differently. So one trait is they have rage. So if it's an overt, they will throw things, they will yell, they will get physically abusive sometimes. The covert has this like silent rage, so you can just feel it. Those people, when you're around it, your whole body feels it and it's oppressive. And, I can just feel it right now thinking about it. You feel like you have, you're walking on eggshells. You're not sure what you're going to get today, Yeah. So to give that example. Okay. So another one is like one trait and that's where the DSM can get confusing. I was just talking to a therapist about this and she said, yeah, because there's so many things that aren't listed in the DSM. Like for instance, narcissists tend to sabotage any day that's special to you, like your birthday or Christmas or Easter or vacation you're excited about, or Mother's Day or Father's Day. But an overt narcissist will do it by putting you down, or will be just verbally abusive, obviously cruel. So a covert narcissist, one of their main goals is to have the center on themselves. And so they will direct your energy back to them. And so usually people who get with narcissists, which I find this interesting, it's like yin and yang. They tend to get with people that are very nurturing and compassionate and caring. And they're a lot of people, empathic, people that have a feeling of I'm here to help, So that works perfectly with a narcissist because they can use that to their advantage, and also very trusting people, I kind of expect, like, I don't control and manipulate. So I almost like have this innocent trait in me that I assume other people I know not everyone's like that, but I assume when I'm interacting with someone, So, so like back to like your birthday, a covert narcissist will demean and devalue you in very subtle ways. Maybe they'll bring up like, you didn't really seem like you really liked my gift. I spent a lot of time like hunting for that and finding it. And so then you feel bad. You're like, oh my gosh, no, I'm so sorry. Even though you don't like the gift because it clearly shows this person doesn't know you, but you feel bad that they, you thought you were being appreciative and, then you're feeling bad and selfish and not grateful. And so then you start spinning, your mind starts spinning, your energy starts going on this stuff. So that's how they'll drain your energy, and they'll make what is supposed to be a day about you, about them.
Yeah. That is so true. And again, this is just textbook stuff in the sense, well, it's your experience, but also it can be very different to this. It could be combinations of a lot of things, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's not just one thing. Do you think any type of narcissism, do you think that you could have a conversation with them and they could say, oh yeah, that person's a narcissist, or I understand psychology, I know what, I've done psychology 101, I know what narcissism is, and but would they be able to recognize the narcissism in themselves, do you think?
Few narcissists do, because they tend to blame other people for their problems. People have asked me, do you think narcissists can heal? And I 100% think everybody can heal. We're made to heal. Our bodies are designed to heal. But no one can heal unless they want to. And so that's the tricky thing with narcissists, is they have to want to, and few of them see themselves as having a problem.
And again, we're talking about a deep-rooted mental disorder, would you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the disorders, in the DSM. It's not like a bipolar disorder, not that kind of thing where you need medication. Narcissism is definitely a choice. It's more of a behavioral disorder that results from, lots of components, but it's definitely a choice. Like, we have a choice whether we're going to be cruel to someone, whether we're going to control someone. And for a lot of them, some are more conscious about it, some are more unconscious about it. And there's definitely a spectrum there. And there's a spectrum of narcissists. I have some people in my life that are lower on the spectrum. So they have some of the traits, but they're kind of mellower. And so I can handle, times with them here and there. And then if someone has more of a higher on the spectrum, traits, then they're not allowed in my life.
I've got so many questions for you, right? And one thing, I just want to go back to your story as well. When did you start seeing that light at the end of the tunnel? Where was that in your process? That you started to see that you could have a life that was everything you'd ever wanted, and you were entitled to it as well.
Yeah, it's a good question. And it definitely wasn't like one day. I would say it was over time of doing healing work. And then also, and the more healing I would do, the more my body would calm down and my nervous system would start to, get regulated, because I learned a lot about trauma and the nervous system. With that, then I started to have a little more energy. And then with that energy, I started feeling like I think I want to eat just raw foods for a few weeks. So I did that, and then I felt more energy, and then it's like I would, it's so much trauma. The more I would heal, it's like space would open up in my body to dream again and to desire again, and to, I love travel so much. It's one of my favorite things in life. And I had a year where I just did so much travel, and I look back and I was in such great shape, and I was like working out more than I've ever worked out in my life, and I was eating well, and I was happy because I was filling my life with so much pleasure, and every part of travel is pleasure, except for, I guess, the TSA, the lines and stuff, security. But every other part of it. So I think just time of really giving myself those cocooning times. And even now I have to do that. I'm learning so much about the rhythm we each have. And, we're especially in Western society, we're in a society where it's like 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. This is how life works. And I'm just learning I don't work that way. And so I'm learning to notice my rhythms, and I'm learning to trust when I'm tired and to lay down. And then I have a burst of energy and I go with that. And then I need to go in nature. And then I want to be with people. And then I don't want to be with people, And so the more, that actually helps your nervous system regulate too, is to really live by those impulses and honor them, because that also builds safety. It's almost like I felt like there were times the young Debbie in me was watching, like, can I trust her? Will she really take care of me? I know she says she will. So it's this ongoing relationship I have with myself of building trust.
Thank you for that. And, with the, and, please chime in here to, correct me, but, potentially with the COVID and overt narcissism, do you think they both play the victim role? That, everything's out to get them, it's never their fault, yeah, they're just the victim of this chaos.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are some people who obviously milk that, and some will even fake illnesses and fake injuries and things like that on the extreme end. And then there's some who that's true of them, but you won't notice because the way they talk, they're like, well, I'm one who takes full responsibility, and and they'll put other people down for being the victim, and they'll put you down and saying, you just keep living in that place of victimhood. They do a lot of projecting what's true about them onto you. So that can get tricky too, because there's even like covert narcissists who are therapists or covert narcissists that go to therapy and they learn all the lingo and they read all these books and then they use them against you. I remember talking to one woman who they had done years of therapy together. And so her husband, they learned all the lingo, and her husband would use this against her and become, because they tend to teach you, because they know more. And so they would use like terms like taking full responsibility and not being a victim and owning your this and that, and so it gets really confusing because they're using all those words, they're saying all the right thing. But if you really look at their actions, it doesn't match with their speech.
For example, they may say that I've apologized to you. I always apologize to you when I'm in the wrong. But actually, that apology doesn't stop their constant toxic behavior or the same patterns of behavior that they keep doing.
So that's where it gets really confusing too, because I would read that narcissists are really bad at apologizing, when in fact a lot of coverts are really good at apologizing because they want to look good no matter what. And so you'll think, gosh, they're even better than I am at apologizing. And it's just kind of more speech to kind of put you down and lift them up, that they're better than you in this instance as well. Yeah. And you're right, where they'll apologize, but the actions there's no change in their behavior. And that's something to watch for. But also it's interesting the way you worded that. Like, I don't know what the situation is, but that's a great scenario where, let's say a woman who's a covert narcissist is saying, I apologize to you every time, and it just seems to be like never enough for you, or whatever the scenario, something like that. And then you leave feeling like wondering, like, is that true? Because yeah, she does apologize a lot. And I do, maybe I hold on to things, maybe I hold on to grudges. Maybe I need to look at this in myself. But the thing to notice is I always come back to, what does love look like? If I'm in a relationship with someone and I've apologized and they're healthy, they're a healthy person, emotionally, and I did something to hurt them and I apologize and they're still being affected. Okay. I wouldn't go, what do you want? Another apology? Instead, their heart would matter to me. That's what love looks like. And I would say, whatever, like, I've apologized, but I can tell you're still feeling stuff around this. I can tell you're still struggling. So I really want to know what's going on with you. And is there anything you need from me that would help heal this for you? That's the difference, is when it comes to covert narcissists, they're not, or any narcissist, they're not really interested in harmony. And they're ultimately not really interested in your heart. And that's a hard thing to realize when you've had this picture of who they are in your mind for a long time. It's real, it's just gut wrenching to come to the place where you're like, wait, this person actually doesn't care about me, and that's the thing. We get so caught up and thrown by what they say to us and end up in like a shame spiral of who we are, thinking something's wrong with us. But really, if you were approached in a loving way of someone who really cares about your heart and wants to know what's really bothering you and wants to help you heal, your walls are going to come down, and then you're going to have this beautiful connection. And that's what love looks like. And I feel like that's what we need to be reminded of as well.
Do you think as you've done your work, because just for very quickly remind us, what is your work right now?
So right now I have many facets to my work. I'm working on my third book, which actually I'm going to talk a lot about it's going to be specifically healing after narcissistic abuse. And I'm going to share a lot of my own healing stories and what I did to heal. So that's part of my life. And then part of my life, I coach people, not a lot. I have like a light schedule right now with coaching because I'm working so much on the book. And then I have other things, like I love creating guided meditations and I have some online courses. So I sing. I'm not right now, but I created this album. This was during that safest place time too, where I was just listening. I thought, I've always had a desire to create healing music and I don't know how. And then I started pursuing it. I met this producer who was great. And together it was a magical experience. Honestly, these songs just came out of me and that was so therapeutic. So there's many Debbies.
Absolutely there is. And Debbie, your website is?
Yeah, it's just my name, debbiemirza.com.
Okay, but I think there's many aspects of us all, isn't there, in a sense, and you're just exploring that as well. And I want to get into the spiritual side, but there's so much still I think we could just touch on. There's just not enough time in this one interview to do this justice. Do you know that, right? Do you find that there's a lot more male clients coming forward to you now? Do you think there's an underlying current of male abuse from women?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it really feels to me like it's down the middle. It's both men and women. This is not a Me Too movement, issue. This is across the board. There are so many women covert narcissists and male covert narcissists. And women, I mean, they can be so tricky too, because I see how women can manipulate a good-hearted man with their poor me stuff. I remember there was a book a while ago called The Celestine Prophecy, and he talked about 4 control dramas, 2 being passive and 2 being aggressive. And one is called The Poor Me. So there's so many women that use their pain, which, I don't want to diminish their pain. I'm sure it's real, but they will use the heart of a man who wants to take care of a woman and wants to support her and help her. And it's so sad to me because those men are so needed, but they will take, it happens so much. They will take their heart and then it's a man, and, men and women that get attracted to these covert narcissists, I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but I see that a lot with men, that there's just this really great, powerful, that protector, that masculine, let me take care of this for you trait, which is fantastic, And it's sad. And if they get with a woman who has these traits, she can completely drain him of all
Yeah.
life force with that.
Well, there can be just in male shaming. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
You're not a man. No,
Yeah.
real men don't do this. Whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Yeah, this male shaming. I used to hate that. That used
Oh,
to
I sure.
really, really trigger me. And
Mhm.
I think for some males as well that, when you're with a narcissistic woman, your worst self definitely shines brightest because you're
Mm.
just fighting back all the time. And I think it's only with time you can say to yourself, God, if only I just walked away. If only I'd listened to my old man who said, keep walking away, walk away. And you just don't
Mm.
at the time. You don't, you just, there's always that confusion afterwards of what the fuck just happened there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What
Oh,
is
yeah.
this?
Right?
It's so
Yeah.
confusing.
Mhm.
And then other family members, you see some of the same behaviors with them. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you ever experienced this where like, for example, you may find out that the father's blocked this individual a couple of times and you're thinking, hang on a minute, there's a reason for that. That's not normal.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
never been an experience I've had with anyone. Why is something that severe happened? What are they experiencing? Or you
Mhm.
see some of the behavior in front of other family members and sometimes it's not there and it's like the whole family that's close to this person knows something's wrong but just continues supporting the behavior even afterwards.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, there can be parents who are afraid of their adult children, you know, who are narcissistic. Yeah. Mhm.
But then the narcissist may say to you, well, she's narcissistic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
My
yeah,
mother is.
exactly.
And
Right.
you're like, oh, is she? Do you know? And sometimes you'll never know. You're not spending enough time with them to even understand that. But it's
Yeah.
it's the whole thing, and they can very easily convince other people that it's all you. Very friends that are close to
Oh,
them as
yeah.
well.
Absolutely. And they're in the narcissist world, they're called flying monkeys, like Wizard of Oz. Yeah, and it's brutal because you will be talked about. It's interesting because I reached a point where I thought I have to somehow figure out how to be okay with other people not knowing the truth about me and thinking I'm an awful person. You know, Actually, it made me kind of have more empathy for celebrities and people in the public eye, because you'd have to come to that place, or would just make you crazy, because for so long I felt like, oh no, I want the truth I want people to know the truth, that's not who I am. I didn't do that. And, but you can't control that. And so that's part of the healing work of figuring out how I have to somehow figure out how to be okay with this and live in this world,
What about
knowing that.
thank you for that. What about the covert narcissist and certain people that they may be attracted to, like people of power, like that they want to be with someone successful because, I need a man who's successful in my life. So they then go and find someone maybe in their next relationship that is successful in it, or whatever we classed as success. But I mean, just from, a materialistic point of view, where does the covert fit into that sort of attraction?
So the cover fits into that because they want to look good and they want to look impressive. And so part of their portfolio is you, the person next to their side, part of their impressive portfolio. So they will pick people who are, good looking or successful, or even, like, let's say you grow up in a religious community, then they'll pick someone who's really religious and impressive that way and leads Bible studies, or leads, I don't know if they have like Quran studies or whatever, like whatever, pick a religion, pick a spirituality, maybe you're in like the new age spiritual world. And so they'll pick a woman or, who leads goddess circles, or a man who, whatever. So it all looks different. That's where it gets confusing, because it's not like one size fits all. There's different models. And so just depending on what your paradigm is, they want someone who looks good. If they're on Wall Street, they want someone rich,
But if you're not adhering to that, and they see that you're at your very beginning stage of what they thought you were further along, that can become a problem to them then.
Well, you're of no use for them anymore. And another illustration of that is, I noticed in my own relationship, when I started getting to stronger, when I started going through my life coach training, I went with Martha Beck, and I got really strong during that training, and I was doing a lot of healing exercises on myself. And when I look back, that's when everything started to fall apart. Because as long as I was the woman who gave my all to this person and put my energy into this person, and they were the central figure, everything was fine, But the minute I started getting strong and thinking, I think I want to do this. Ooh, this lights me up. Oh, I'm getting excited about this. They can't be with someone who's strong and happy, because then there's no energy to drain. It's a very bizarre thing how it's like they're kind of empty shells. I mean, I know no one is, but it's weird when you think about covert narcissists and you really picture them. It's this question of like, who are they really? They feel empty, so they choose people who have a lot of life, and they drain that life over time. It's this weird, almost kind of spiritual thing.
I know, right? And how many times in your relationship, when you look back in the end, were you gaslit to the sense that you said something, or what they said to you was said, but it's absolutely denied. The reality is absolutely denied that they ever said these things.
The gaslighting I experienced was in a different form. It wasn't so much like, although, it's funny because even things are coming to me even these days. I'm like, oh, wait, that did happen, Like, it's funny when you, because I talk to people, it's like, well, no, they never lied. And I was like that too. Then I started catching them in lies. And then I realized, well, how would I know if this person was lying to me? And then it's like, oh, okay. But I'm blanking out on your question.
The gaslighting, how much was your reality denied to you?
Yeah. Oh, so much. I mean, I think that's a really good way to put it. Your reality denied to you, because you can be thinking clearly in your mind, and then they'll come in the room and start a conversation. And it's just like all sense of reality gets so muddled and you confused. You don't even know what's true about yourself. I went through a period leading up to the divorce, where I would call my best friend and my sister and go, am I controlling? Am I inconsiderate? Am I manipulative? Am I selfish? Maybe I am. Maybe he knows me more than I know myself, because maybe I have this image of me that's nice and loving, but maybe that's not even true. Like, I've duped myself into thinking I'm this beautiful person, and yeah, it's weird, and it's something to watch for. I mean, our bodies are just so brilliant, because when we get around these people, all of a sudden you'll feel like the weight of the world on your shoulder, or you'll feel your head feeling dizzy, or won't even feel good, like you're getting sick. But it's really hard to think clearly when you're with them. I think that's a really fascinating, energetic,
Yeah.
phenomenon.
And sometimes I'm just remembering, but say like I'm I'm in a car and I've said something. Now I don't know if it was silly or whether it was just some just chit chat stuff, right? And
Yeah.
then you're punished for saying something that you can't hold a conversation with me about anything, and then it's the
Yeah.
silent treatment then.
Right. Oh, so much silent treatment. Or I have, like little, and it's like you were saying before, it's so many little things over a long period of time where it's just like little things of when I go into a restaurant, it really matters to me where I sit. I don't know if it's that feng shui thing or I'm just very sensitive and I can just feel that's not going to feel good. I want to sit in this area. I want, and I'm not obnoxious about it. If it's packed, I'm not going to throw a fit and have to have that table. But if I have a choice, I'll ask, like, hey, is that table over there free? As I'm asking it, I can feel next to me this whole like, she's so much to handle. She's so high maintenance. Why do you have to make it so? And so none of these words were said, but over years I clearly got the message that I ask way too much. That I put that hostess in such a difficult position. I remember going to like an ice cream store with my kids, and it's common in America when you go to ice cream stores to ask, hey, can I have a sample of that cookie dough one? Can I have a sample of that? Like, not to go crazy, but you can have like 2 or 3. But even in that, it was just, there was one time where the kids and I were asking, we had samples and then we ordered cones and we left. And you could just feel the rage. So much rage over the fact that we asked for samples, and we all got the message that we were selfish, we were entitled, we were, a list of so many things. And so that silence, especially when you're a sensitive person, it's just torture, and that is definitely one way that they punish you.
I think it can also make you a really unstable person in the end, as the receiver of a lot of this stuff, where,
Yes.
in the end, your behavior starts to become crazy in situations, and
Exactly.
you can blow up in situations where you shouldn't be, and
Yeah.
you're not thinking straight anymore, and you're so deeply, at a very deep root, so unhappy and depressed, and
Mhm.
so many more things, and
Yeah.
you're carrying the hate with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're just so bottled up inside. I mean, you want to scream, but you can't. There's nothing noticeable that feels like you have permission to scream, or it's understandable that you want to scream. And that happens often too. That it's like I felt like the whole relationship I had this low level depression and chronic fatigue, and it and that's what happens. You have these issues, but you don't notice where the source of them is coming from, but instead you try and change how you eat or exercise or get therapy or try and figure out what your life purpose is, or
Well, you can go to therapy, but then when you come out of therapy, it's like, see, I told you, that therapist said it's all your fault. It's all you. So you've got to work on yourself. It's nothing to do with me. He was the one that gave you the book. No more, no more Mr. Nice Guy. That's the book I got
oh
given.
yeah, I know that book. Yeah.
And he's like, and you didn't even do the homework to want to read it. I mean,
Wow.
I was so messed up at the time. I didn't want to read it, to be honest, and I will one day.
Yeah.
But and I remember going back to my therapist just recently and saying to him, you missed the signs, mate. I'm not being rude to you, but you completely. He didn't want to know. I said you completely missed the signs.
Good for you. Yeah. Yeah. I have a client who just did the same thing. She said, I'm about to write my therapist to tell her how she missed the signs. And that's the thing with therapists, and there's a lot of good therapists out there. There's a lot of messed up therapists out there too. There's a mixture. But they weren't trained. There's no training for covert narcissism when you're becoming a therapist. So you can go years when you're in these abusive relationships and you can have therapy for years, and they'll just cover communication, or they just don't see
arguments.
it.
Just arguments you're having. That's all you're having.
Yeah, this is normal. Yeah, you just need to be more clear about this and that. And so that adds to the confusion. And then covert narcissists, you never want to go to therapy with them, because it's like a training ground for them, because that's where they learn where their mask is slipping. If the therapist brings something up that's not good that they're doing, they take that as information. Oh, okay, so I can't let that out anymore. So I'm going to become a little more covert in this area. And they tend to charm therapists,
That's interesting. What does it do to the children? Obviously, you had kids. The children are witnessing, or it could just be a child witnessing this. They see, well, one of these two are the problem. Do you know what I mean? So they're going to side with one of them. But what is the long-term effects had your children been in the care of their father, for example, if he had won some sort of custody, right? What is it for the children of those that have narcissistic, whatever level it is?
Yeah, it's awful. It's hard to say a blanket answer to that, because every situation is so different. But anyone who is raised with a narcissist, covert narcissist, is going to have that same cognitive dissonance, and they are going to get the message that something is wrong with them, that they don't have what it takes, that the parent always knows better. They will be punished for not going along with the rules of the covert narcissistic parent, punished in covert ways, punished in silent treatment, punished in rejection. Parenting is all about them. When you have a covert narcissist parent, they can often be really good parents when the kids are younger, because the kids are still like, Mommy, Daddy, they're still so excited about you. And so that feeds into the narcissistic energy supply. Their kids become their energy supply too. So then when they get to, age 9, 10, where they start having their own opinion, and they start maybe not wanting to watch the movie you want to watch, or go somewhere you want to go, they stop being an energy supply. And that's where then there's different dynamics, because there might be like a golden child to the narcissist, like a favorite child, and they'll get all their attention where the other one won't, as a way of punishing the other one for not being a people pleaser. So the people pleaser golden child, it affects them detrimentally, because they learn in life that they need to constantly be giving to narcissistic people, and they need to be perfect at all times. That's exhausting, and that leads them into dysfunctional relationships. And then the kind of black sheep kid gets the message that they'll never be good enough, and they're a disappointment, and all those messages, and they'll end up. So it rocks so much the core of who you are as beautiful and magnificent, and yeah.
But it's never too late. I mean, what the things we're talking about here, those narcissistic people, they can get help. I think, though, it's unlikely sometimes, or even when they do get help, unless they're going to be really honest with the person that they're sat with, and they want the change, then it's just mental masturbation in a sense. Do you know what I mean? There ain't much going to alter, or maybe there will be some change, but not to the degree that they really need. But they can change. There is no can't if they want to change.
100%. In fact, occasionally I'll get someone who schedules a session with me. This just happened last week, where a man scheduled a session with me, and he said, I probably should have told you ahead of time, but I think I might be a covert narcissist. I was like, oh, wow. All right, well, tell me why you think that. What traits do you see in yourself? And that was a fascinating session, because as I watched it, and again, with all my clients, like, I'm already on his side. Even when he says that, it's like, I know there's beauty in him. I know there's magnificence in him. And I saw it, and I found it really interesting. I think there's a lot of people who maybe aren't narcissistic, but think they are. And I asked him a question as I listened to him, because there was so much self-doubt and so much self-hatred, so much like blame and shame and guilt. And I said, why do you think it is? I said, it feels to me like you're on this quest to find the longest list possible of everything that's wrong with you. Why do you think you're on this quest? What do you think this is going to do for you? I just find it really interesting. And then we kind of traced back to some horrific things he found out about his dad. And this was really fascinating, especially on a spiritual level to me. And I've talked to other men, young men and older men, about this. And it makes me wonder if this is a really common thing. When they find out dark things about their dad, there's this seed of, what if I become like that? I have his DNA. I came from him. What if I am intrinsically a bad person? I have a feeling this happens to men more than women. I don't know for sure, but it's just a sense I have. And I found it fascinating. And I loved loving him. And I loved pointing out that his soul, in my belief, is beautiful. And it's just all this crap that he's been raised with that has given him all these lie after lie after lie after lie about him, and that he's not a bad person, and he has a choice, and anyone can heal. And I saw his whole body relax when I said that, so I really want people to hear that. If you're someone who wants to heal, you can 100%.
Absolutely. And I'll say this as well. Look, even though what I experienced, I will say, minus all that, there was a beautiful person there, right? I would be a complete liar to say the opposite, right? And I'm not adding that just to protect myself. It's the truth. I experienced it, right?
Yeah.
And there were beautiful memories as well. It would be a
Mhm.
lie to say that that was opposite. I'm sure for the same for yourself as well. There were very
For
beautiful memories.
sure.
Yeah.
And that's why these relationships last so long. If it was all horrific, we would have left a lot sooner. But it was mixed in with that intermittent reinforcement that happens with covert narcissist, where it's mixed in with beautiful love notes and kind words and times you feel,
and not all narcissists or covert narcissists or whatever borderline personality it is are cheaters and all that. As we said, it's a real mixture, because there's so much to read online, or this point, that point, that point, and it's not like that when you've done the work like you have as well, and you get to speak to someone about it. So very, very quickly, because I know we're well over time here, and I appreciate you giving us the extra time, because you've got a lot going on right now. But let's just move it into the spiritual arena just very quickly. Obviously, you've done your wonderful first book, which is coming up on the screen right now as well, which again talks a lot about forgiveness and some of your spiritual journey as well. But in the spiritual field, I just know there's a lot of narcissists in this field. I know it. It's just very obvious, and covert ones.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's interesting.
Who completely just add this? Who completely abuse their power? Let me just say that.
Yeah, and it's really. I get really upset at this, because this is like, I don't want to say soul damage, but I think, and I've experienced it myself. I've talked to so many people. no matter what your spiritual circles are, religious circles are, it is rampant. Because when you think about it, a covert narcissist drains other people's energy and wants to be in the center of attention. So, what better job than a pastor, a guru, what do you call that? Like speakers, motivational speakers, coaches, therapists, humanitarians, anyone that looks good in your circle. You know what I mean? And it's interesting. Part of me, honestly, has thought about writing a book about this someday because I feel like it's really important. Just what that looks like, because, and this is where how cults form, how Jim Jones and drinking the Kool-Aid, and these start out, actually, there's a great documentary. It used to be on Netflix. I don't know if it still is. It's called Holy Hell. Have you heard of that?
I'll let you continue, and I may have done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a documentary about a cult and people who followed this cult leader for over 20 years. What I found so fascinating is at the end of the documentary, their interviews, everything they said, I thought, oh my gosh, that's how I feel. That's what I experienced. And so in many ways, leaving a covert narcissist, especially when you've been with them a long time, but even a shorter time too, it can have a great effect on you. It's like coming out of a cult, and there's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen because you've been brainwashed in many ways for a long time. And with like spiritual, I grew up in the Christian faith, and then I left that, and then I was went into like the new age kind of stuff. And now I'm just in my own camp with my own heart, mind, and with close friends that tend to think the same way. I don't ascribe to any certain
That's
thing.
funny. Yeah, exactly. That's a great place to be. That is such a great, yeah.
It's a happy place here in my mind.
All truth lies within. I always say it to people. If we want to know what's good for you or what feels right, listen to that intuition. Oh my God, even if it leads you down a path where you think, oh my God, listen to that, and look what it's led me down. It was the right path. It's okay. Exactly it. Just what you needed to go through, right?
That's it. It's all experience. It's all learning. It's all information. And I still will, read books I'm drawn to, or if there's like some other, I'd mentioned to you the gene keys, they fascinate me.
Oh,
so
yes.
Yeah. So I've been diving into that. But even that, if there's something I read and I'm like, I trust myself, no matter what teaching is out there.
Because sometimes we can get so addicted, can't we, to someone else wanting to save us?
Yeah, or just, I don't so much get addicted to that. I get more addicted to, I don't know if addiction is the word, but drawn into fascinating ideas and magic, the magic of the universe and how everything works. And, but I think because of my history and everything I've gone through, I definitely have my radar up for any spiritual leader at all. But it's so sad because it's people that come to people like that are seeking, and they're open-hearted and they're tender. And that's what upsets me so much, because they really have this earnest, like, let's say a Christian, they really have this earnest heart to know God and develop a relationship with them. And then, like New Age is, for example, because those are the two I know the most, they just really want to connect with angels and know where they're from, and have they had past life, they're really.
So you think some narcissists might some covert or mainstream narcissists may be lying to themselves about the gift that they've got, and it actually, what they're telling them may not maybe coming from a narcissistic angle rather than sort of power grab.
Yeah. Because just like in a relationship, you go through a love bombing stage. And so you do that with religions and spiritual things. You'll discover some new thing and you're like, and then you'll discover some person that's preaching about this or teaching about this, and you're like, and you're love bombed by them because they're kind and they listen to you. And maybe they're the first person in your life that has validated how you feel. And so you build that trust at the beginning. So then later, when they say things that don't feel good to your body, you rationalize it because this is in your mind. You're convinced this is a good person that really cares about you. So when you tell them, as an example, when you put your hand on my leg during that meeting, I felt really uncomfortable. And then the spiritual leader says to you, well, it sounds like something was triggered there for you. Let's talk about that. It sounds like maybe there's a part of you that isn't open to intimacy, when clearly he crossed the line, but instead of being honest about it, he turns it around as there's something that you need to look at inside yourself. And that's where that gets so damaging.
That's right. And if you've already got narcissistic tendencies and you're seeing someone like that, well, that's only going to amplify any issues that you've got and take you on to the next part of your journey. So, yeah, it can be very self-destructive for so many reasons. I think everyone's got a different life path, and no matter what you go through, yeah, it sometimes is maybe what it's meant to be, but it also is also not healthy as well.
Yeah, it's a big learning thing. I heard someone the other day say, if you're just nice to people, they'll be nice back to you. And I thought, that's what I used to think. And that's not true. And I think it's a wake-up call for especially us sensitive people, that this type of darkness exists and it's not clear and it's not obvious. And so we need to have more than a tender heart. We need to have discernment, and I think also, in a perfect world where everyone came from a place of love, we wouldn't need boundaries because that would just be part of this healthy world. But the reality is we live in a world that is not functioning in the way that we are meant to function. And part of that is, and these are, yeah, and part of that is realizing that there is a type of darkness out there that masquerades as something good, and that's a difficult thing
And that masquerading sometimes may be like there's something good working for that person, like a spiritual teacher or some channeler or whatever, right? Yet the darkness is stronger in them to want to go down that road. They're the ones with their own distortion.
Yeah. And ultimately it's, a narcissist, to be a narcissist. I mean, we manifest what we feel inside. Like we treat others how we are feeling inside of ourselves, And so for a narcissist to treat someone in a way of controlling them, that tells me that that person is feeling fearful and out of control, and also not trusting life, but feeling like they need to control things. It's also, I think you'd have to have a tremendous amount of self-hatred to hate so much other people, because there's a lot of hate coming from them. And so that to me lets me know what's going on inside them. Because, as we all know, like when I'm at the most loving state possible inside myself, I'm so loving to everyone around me. So I think it's a really eye-opening thing, or just kind of an exercise to do with people. Noticing how they're treating other people lets us know how they're treating themselves inside.
That is so true. Yeah. Yeah. And that is food for thought, that is, because sometimes that, I mean, I've been guilty of, ranting at one person and then being loving with others. But um, I suppose that's when I'm doing a documentary that's going against someone, calling them, saying that what they're supporting is not real. But not normally am I like that. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you. So thank you for sharing that. I think everything you shared on here is so important. And I know we've gone well over we're 29 minutes over right now. So I'm just going to be respectful and just say, listen, Debbie, I just thank you so much for coming on. And I wish you all good things for everything you're doing, and especially for the new book coming out as well, which I know you've got to get finished. So you don't do many interviews, but I really appreciate you coming on to do this with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking with you and meeting you.